friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello, welcome. Today, first and foremost, candle of the day. It's the classic champagne toast. It's the best. I was just in a mood where I was like, I need some champagne toast in my life, so that's what we're doing. Today's video, I finally got around to watching the Netflix documentary titled Broken, which is split up into a bunch of parts, but the part I wanted to specifically talk about today is the makeup section of that documentary. Basically, it's a documentary. I believe it's about vaping. There's one about like IKEA. There was one about the makeup industry, which is what we're gonna talk about. And the big reason I wanted to talk about it, number one, I found it really interesting, and there was just a lot of stuff I wanted to like discuss with you guys. And number two, this documentary and the making of this documentary was a source of a lot of drama in the beauty community last year when Marlena announced she was going to be filming with them and James Charles kind of like popped off. There was all this drama surrounding this one. So I wanted to watch the documentary and kind of see what it was all about. And this is no shade to Marlena because I don't know if this was just because of what happened after she talked about it. I think if you hadn't have watched the trailer and you just saw that it was like coming out, I think a lot of people had the assumption that this was about like the makeup industry. That's not really what it's about. This episode was mostly focused on black market makeup that's made unsold illegally, dupe makeup that's been made, and kind of discusses why counterfeit makeup is so popular, where it comes from, and what the authorities and police are trying to do and companies are trying to do to stop this production of counterfeit makeup. I just want to preface this whole thing by saying that I think if you already were pretty well aware of the beauty industry, I don't know if this would have taught you a ton, maybe if you already were super aware about like counterfeit makeup. But I'm not gonna lie, I've always heard obviously about counterfeit makeup. I've never bought any, at least that I know of, intentionally. I've never bought any counterfeit makeup. And I also never, even though I knew counterfeit makeup was a thing and I was aware of that it was a thing that was going on. I mean, there's been videos made by people like James Charles comparing counterfeit makeup to real makeup. While I knew it was a thing, I think I didn't necessarily know number one, the danger, and number two, I never really thought about how it was like manufactured and how it was made. You always just kind of hear counterfeit makeup, and I never like put together, maybe that's just me being stupid, but I just never like put together how these types of counterfeit items were made and how there's like big, huge organizations behind those things. So while I think if you already know a lot about counterfeit makeup, you're not going to learn a lot about this, I do think if you don't know a lot about the topic, it's a very interesting documentary to watch. So the first kind of thing that they touch on in the documentary is the rise of the beauty influencer, and that's where Marlena comes in. Marlena was kind of their example of a beauty influencer who also went on to start her own brand. She talked about how Makeup Geek did like $22 million in sales in 2017, which is freaking nutty. She talks about her success as a beauty influencer. And then there's also people on the flip side, because there's a ton of people that got interviewed for this, talking about how the rise of the beauty influencer and the rise of beauty YouTube also has correlated with the rise of the makeup industry, which in turn has correlated with the rise of counterfeit makeup products that we are seeing. The more profitable the makeup industry became, the more profitable counterfeit makeup became. And they talk about how because beauty influencers and brands promote this idea of exclusivity, the Kylie lip kits were a great example that they gave of when those were first coming out, people were buying counterfeit ones because the originals were selling out so quickly and it was such a hot commodity because all the beauty influencers were talking about them. Kylie herself was promoting them. And they kind of talk about how beauty influencers like hype all of this stuff up and talk about this stuff so much that it has led to this sense of FOMO basically amongst people who maybe either can't afford these things, don't have the access to them, which is leading more and more people to either accidentally, unknowingly, or purposefully buying these things just so they can have them as like a status symbol. So even if you know you're buying a fake Kylie lip kit, you can still hold it up at the bar while you're putting it on, and it's like almost like a status symbol. People will know that you had this Kylie lip kit and like that you have the money to buy it. There was a girl particularly that they interviewed who bought a fake Kylie lipstick and it actually had super glue in it, which caused her lips to get glued glued together, which is horrifying, who talked about her rationale behind buying from a less than ideal source because she wanted that kind of status symbol because of influencers and because of what they had. So then they actually move on to kind of what was the, you know, solution to this problem for people who didn't have the money but still wanted quality makeup. And this is where you bring in indie brands. And they kind of talk at length about how indie brands are doing things differently. They're coming out with different colors. They're coming out with different styles that is still pretty and aesthetically nice to look at and good quality, but at a much cheaper price than something like Kylie Cosmetics. This is where they brought in ColorPop. And honestly, this part was super interesting to me. I think it almost in a way changed a lot of my perceptions about ColorPop, because I think in the past I've thought that their excessive amount of products that they put out and the excessiveness in which they, you know, constantly have new collections, constantly have new eyeshadow palettes, everything is constantly new with them. And I still think that that promotes a type of rampant consumerism that I don't necessarily appreciate. However, I used to think it was an incredibly wasteful tactic until they kind of explained their process. They custom created their own sort of production line. And I think one of the most staggering things I heard in the whole documentary was that ColorPop can go from a concept to a finished product that is ready for production in 5 days. And the way, 5 days, which is nuts. But the way the CEO was explaining it, he was saying how because of this, the way that they do things and because of the way they manufacture things, because it's all in-house, because everything is almost like made to order essentially because they can do it so quickly, it reduces their amount of waste because they don't have to outsource 100,000 palettes from somewhere in China or somewhere in the US that has to get shipped to them and then sit in a warehouse. And then if it doesn't sell out, it just ends up at like Marshall's or TJ Maxx or in a landfill. So they say because they're basically making things to order, they're actually reducing their waste. They don't have a ton of products just sitting around. It's way less likely things are going to expire. And when the demand stops for something, they just stop producing it. I think that's, now that I'm like thinking about it truly, and once I like thought about that, I was like, that is so smart and such a good way to do things. Because if you think about it, you know all these like Tarte palettes and Too Faced palettes and like Urban Decay palettes that literally go on sale in like 5 minutes after they're put up, like they're constantly going on sale. It's because they pre-ordered so much stock that is not selling. Like why it ends up at TJ Maxx and Marshall's and destroyed in landfills is because they have to order all of these things up front, and it's ending up creating way more waste than something like ColorPop. So even though ColorPop is producing more and more product, at the end of the day, they're not just, at least it's not just sitting in a warehouse collecting dust, getting expired, being wasted. So while I still have issues with ColorPop and the amount of consumerism they promote, I do think that there is value in what they are doing. I think there's value in working in-house to create your own products. And I think it's really cool. And I think that's why one of the main reasons they've been so successful is because they can do things so quickly that they can hop on trends faster than anyone. Like when people started wanting a yellow palette, now that I'm remembering this, people started wanting a yellow palette. ColorPop came out with that like 2 weeks after everyone started talking about how cool it would be for them to have a yellow palette. They can hop on the trends that people actually want and are actively asking for. They can do that. And I don't know, I think that's kind of cool. So that was their whole little section about ColorPop. I thought that was really interesting, and it was a different perspective that I guess I didn't really think about before with ColorPop and how they produce things, and I thought that was really cool. So then they started talking about counterfeit stuff and really diving into it. And I guess ColorPop has had things that people like tried to remake and say was theirs, like a Makeup Geek, Marlena's brand, had this issue with people, you know, making counterfeit items and trying to sell them. And the main focuses of the rest of the episode were on a place called Santee Alley in California, and also an investigator in China who was kind of working to find out who a supplier was for all of this like product and stuff like that. The Santee Alley investigations were super interesting, and I thought those were interesting to watch. Santee Alley, if you don't know, is this place in California basically known for selling counterfeit things. Like if you watch like any video of an LA influencer looking over counterfeit things, they buy it from Santee Alley because they have a ton of them. New York City has a lot of things like this too. I know I've been to places, especially in like Chinatown, and even just like on random street corners, there's always people selling like counterfeit bags and counterfeit, you know, wallets, whatever. So this is kind of a thing everywhere, but the main focus was Santee Alley, and this is like a specific place where people set things up. And they talked about a gigantic sting that the LAPD organized to kind of arrest people who were selling this counterfeit makeup and confiscate all of this counterfeit makeup to get it off the streets. And an interesting point that was brought up from the Santee Alley stuff was the police officer basically said, because counterfeit makeup is such a low level crime, like it can hurt people because it's causing people, they talked to a dermatologist in the documentary, it's causing people actual infections in their face. Counterfeit makeup is a cause for a lot of skin infections, you know, lip infections, eye infections. So while it is harming people and while there are victims, it's not a victimless crime. It's not obviously on the same caliber as something like murder or something like grand larceny. Like it's not on those same levels. So the punishment for selling counterfeit goods is pretty low. The guy said that, you know, people can probably make anywhere from like $500,000 off of a single, you know, purchase that they got smuggled in, and then they serve 10 days in jail. So he's kind of saying like, what is to discourage these people from doing things like this? Because yeah, it's 10 days in jail, but you got $500,000 and we can't take that from them. All we can take is the goods, but they've already sold a ton of goods and they can very easily get more. So he kind of talked about how in the US, once the products are actually in the country, it's definitely very hard to stop them from being sold, because he was kind of saying, one of the guys described it as like whack-a-mole. He's like, you pop one down and 5 others pop up. I also talked to people who work at shipyards and are customs for shipyards who, you know, the big like freight containers they bring on ships, there's like millions of those entering our country every day, and a lot of them are counterfeit goods. And the people at the border patrol, like the people who tried to keep track of this, say they're like, we try our best, but at the end of the day, it would be impossible for them to go through every single container that gets shipped there and see if it was counterfeit or not. It's just kind of impossible for them to do that. Police and the people in the US who are working to try to stop this are trying their best, it seems like, but it does also seem like it's a problem that's not going to be solved as easily as we would hope. And then when they did the kind of investigations in China, it was a similar thing where the guy was kind of like, it's so hard because you can get the person at the bottom who's selling it, but nothing's actually going to change until you get the supplier of these goods, until you can figure out who is making the products and who is at the top of the chain, because until then you're just getting low level people who, you know, they aren't actually the ones doing the crazy serious crime here. One interesting thing that I liked about the documentary was they did provide a tiny bit of hope, and I think that hope is that consumers being more aware will stop this whole cycle from continuing. One of the women who they interviewed, who I really liked, I thought she was really well spoken. I liked what she said a lot, but she basically said there's not one factor to blame for this rise in counterfeit makeup. Like, you can't just blame influencers for promoting these products. You can't just blame brands for selling these products as limited edition and building up hype with marketing tactics that cause this type of frenzy to get products. You can't even just blame the counterfeiters, because they're taking an opportunity that's been given to them. And also, one guy compared it and was kind of like, you can either sell fake Kylie lip kits or you can sell drugs. One's a felony and one's not. Like, obviously you're gonna pick that one. There's no real answer or solution as to why this is happening and how to stop it, except consumers being more informed. But I kind of wanted to talk about it because I feel like maybe people don't know the seriousness and the danger of buying counterfeit makeup and what it can not only do to you, but what it does to other people and the impact it has on other people. I think that we as consumers now need to be more aware of these types of things. And I think honestly it sucks, because I know that people like to buy makeup secondhand and from places like Poshmark and Mercari and Depop. I used to sell makeup on those and they were all 100% real, but you can't guarantee that what you're buying is real. So I think it puts it in a hard place, because in a way we have to tell you as a person who maybe can't afford to buy things in a conventional way that the one way that you were buying things could potentially be really, really dangerous. And I get why that sucks. But I think at the end of the day, this problem and the safety hazard that it legitimately causes people will not be fixed until the consumers stop making a demand for these types of products, until we stop buying the counterfeit and fake products. So I think it was an overall really good episode. I think getting the information out there and allowing people to know and understand kind of the dangers of this was really cool. I thought Marlena's part in the video was really interesting. I think people were a little salty because they felt like she portrayed it as her being the like star of this documentary. And I don't know if, I don't really remember exactly how things went down, but I don't know if that's how it was necessarily portrayed. Maybe it was, I don't know. Either way, I'm kind of glad that all this drama was surrounding it, because I feel like more people watched it because they thought there was going to be some type of drama. And I'm so happy that it was like a genuinely, legitimately good message on how we can try to not be so consumeristic that we're putting the general public's health at risk. Like, I thought that was fantastic. Again, I think if you didn't know a lot about this topic, or you don't know a lot about this topic, there's definitely parts of this documentary I missed and didn't necessarily delve into. I think you would have to watch the entire episode to really get a feel for what it is. I thought it was fantastic and well worth the watch. It was really, really, really good. I really enjoyed learning more about counterfeit makeup, and not only like how it's made and how it happens, but like the things that happen in the beauty community that like we talk about all of the time, especially on my channel. I feel like I talk about this stuff all the time. How the things that we're talking about, consumerism and FOMO and all of these things, how this is directly caused a $1 million industry of counterfeit makeup to thrive and prosper. I just thought that was really interesting. So let me know what you guys think. If you watched the documentary, let me know what you thought about it. If you didn't and you just listened to this commentary, let me know what you think about the topic. I think it's really interesting. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, or just like, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, which is only available until the 31st, not to cause FOMO. Please don't create knockoffs. I'll re-put it back out if anyone does. My merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with a link to register to vote. That's right. You can click on that link, you can register to vote, and you can be a part of your democracy. It's a beautiful thing. And if you're not from the United States and that link does not apply to you, please make sure you're staying informed on what's going on in your local, state, and federal elections. Make sure you're using your voice in a positive way, because the world absolutely needs more of that. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!